Our topic of discussion today is resource planning and agribusiness finance. We shall start by looking at understanding resource mobilization. Understanding resource mobilization. In our discussion, we shall start by looking at understanding resource mobilization. I believe by the end of this lesson, you will be able to define resource mobilization, to identify different kinds of resources available for agribusiness, to make informed decisions on whether to acquire resources or generate funds for agribusiness, and lastly, to mobilize resources for agribusiness. For one to run the business successfully, he or she should be able to understand the resource requirement for the business. Resources. Now we are going to define a resource as follows. Resources are financial or non-financial supplies as well as strategies that help organizations to achieve its objective. It is also defined as a useful possession that an organization has. Resources are materials, things and services that helps an organization to fulfill needs. Or, we can say a thing of value for an entity. Classification of resources. Resources can be classified as follows: financial, non-financial, or strategic. Financial resources. Financial resources are those resources that can be converted to cash easily. Examples are bank deposits, stocks, cash at hand, and debtors. This can be obtained from financial institutions, capital markets, or owner's equity. Other sources can include the grants, donations, and inheritance. Non-financial. While non-financial resources are assets whose value is determined by its characteristics and its net worth, it can either be tangible and intangible assets. Tangible assets are machinery, land, equipment, motor vehicle, while intangible assets are patents, intellectual property, and goodwill. Strategic resources. Finally, we can say strategic resources are unique, rare, difficult to copy, and things of value that an organization has. They can also be the ways or processes that an organization uses. Example: Coca-Cola Company has a resource that no other company can imitate in the soda industry. That is why it has remained relevant in the world. All the three resources above are very important for organizational survival. Some of these resources can be generated by the organization, while others can be obtained from outside. It is very important to identify resources that you need from outside so that you draw the plan of obtaining them. Please note, it is important to remind ourselves that resources are materials, finance, men and women, means and time that are used to help meet the objectives of the entity. Resources mobilization. We can define resource mobilization as all activities that an organization undertakes to get resources it requires. Or, we can also say it's a process of identifying and obtaining resources important for organizational operations. Importance of resource mobilization. What do you think are the importance of resource mobilization? Some of the benefits of doing resource mobilizations are to provide continuity and stability in agribusiness, to support agribusiness sustainability, to allow the business to scale up and improve on the product and service, and lastly, it helps the entity generate new ideas and remain relevant. To make decisions on how to get the resources for the organization, it is important that you consider the following. Considerations for resource acquisition. To decide whether to acquire or generate funds, you have to consider the following. First, vulnerability. That is, if getting resources outside makes you vulnerable to external forces, then generate yours. Second, autonomy. If getting resources from donors will make you go as per their decision, then to be independent, then generate yours. Third, sensitivity. Ask yourself, how vulnerable is the organization to change in the resources? If highly sensitive, acquire it. Fourth, criticality. Ask yourself, can the resource be found easily or replaced? If yes, then get it externally. Fifth, consistency. High consistency means ability to alter the resource profile without compromising outcome. And finally, compatibility. The resources that are highly compatible can easily be acquired from outside. Please note, generally, resources that show low vulnerability, sensitivity, criticality, high consistency, substantial autonomy, and high compatibility are important as they enable the firm to be more agile and adaptive.